Hello and welcome back to the Formula 1 chat. Today we're here to review the Spanish Grand Prix, the 2023 Spanish Grand Prix. It's actually quite an interesting race, wasn't it? A lot of people had fears that we might be in for another sort of dull affair, as the Spanish Grand Prix tends to be, but I actually thought we were treated to quite the spectacle given the race we've had so far this season.
I mean, I called it. If you watched our preview on Friday, I did say it was going to be an interesting race. And it was an interesting race. Different strategies. We actually saw overtakes. And I'm so glad we've got rid of the final chicane. It made it so much better.
It does just make me wonder, would we have had some more absolute classic Grand Prix if it wasn't for that final chicane? But yeah, I thought the racing was quite good. I thought we saw a lot of overtakes throughout. I think the final corner definitely helped with that. But it wasn't too easy. Turn 1 at Spain's very difficult still to pull the move off.
Yeah.
You didn't see anyone blasting past anyone in the straight, mainly because Red Bull were up the front. Well, one of them. But I think we saw some good competitive racing in Turn 1. It was quite a fun Grand Prix.
The run off the final corner is not easy. We've seen people crash there. We've seen people put it in the gravel there. No names.
Especially adapting to it.
Especially
adapting to it for this first time. But yeah, I actually think the Spanish Grand Prix, give it its flowers. Good race. Should we start by going through every single team and talking about how they got on, as we always do? We'll start then with
about Logan Sargeant.
Bottom of the Constructors' Championship, which is, of course, still the Williams team. Just double-checking nothing's changed. No, of course it hasn't. Williams are bottom.
They were. I think it is fair to say they had absolutely no pace around this circuit. And, I mean, that's the first time I think after Albon knocked out in Q1.
Could it have gone much worse?
No, Sargeant crashed in free practice 3.
Yeah.
He then had to start from the pit lane. Albon was he was on the back row in 18th for the Sunday race. They both went absolutely nowhere during the Grand Prix, and it was a torrid weekend for Williams.
P18, P20 in qualifying, only split by the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, which of course we'll go on to later. But then 16th and bottom of the pile for Sargeant, Albon 16th. It's just a really poor weekend for Williams. They clearly didn't have a lot to work with. I think aerodynamically they're probably one of the worst cars on the grid. I think we saw this in Monaco where they lifted... No, it wasn't Monaco. It was the Spanish Grand Prix, wasn't it?
Yes.
No, everyone's been clowning. When they lift the cars up, obviously you get to see the floor, and Williams is just flat.
Sargent's floor is just flat.
It's like a Lego car. It's just flat.
It is a box. That is just a box with a seat in the middle.
Yeah, you see the intricacies on the Red Bull floor. And then you see the Williams one where they've just
got one big bit on the bottom.
Put a plank on it, and that was about it. But yeah, not a lot of aerodynamic gains being made with that
Awful
floor.
Weekend for Williams.
And yeah, I think a really poor weekend for the Williams team. They're hoping to bounce back in a couple of weeks in Canada, which I think they could do, considering they usually qualify well. Yeah. They can get in a good position. They can definitely hold up some traffic for a bit.
They're quick in a straight line, 2 long straights to Canada.
Yeah, so maybe there's a chance that they pull something off there. Maybe pull some points out the bag.
Maybe.
It was a very poor Spanish Grand Prix weekend for the Williams team. Up next then, we of course have the AlphaTauri team,
Much better.
I think were really unlucky in this race. So obviously in qualifying, neither had a particularly fascinating or significant qualifying. P14 for Nick de Vries, P15 for
Yuki to get out of Q3 is massive. Q1, sorry.
Is it?
Yuki's
been qualifying top 10.
I mean,
De Vries was 12th last round.
Hat off to De Vries, out qualifying Tsunoda once again.
Yeah.
Since he got that ultimatum after he kept crashing, he's been really decent last couple of races.
There seems to be a lot more consistency to his performances, yeah.
And he shows if he can keep it out of the wall, he's quite a quick driver. And we're starting to see what we've seen.
He is a quick driver, but as he showed in the race, he doesn't have that ultimate pace like other drivers in Formula 1. Do I think he's going to stay to the end of the season? Probably. Do I see him staying much beyond that? Probably not.
Yeah.
And to be fair, he would be lucky to get to the end of the season.
I guess we'll find out and we'll have to wait and see.
But I think if Red Bull had someone currently top of the F2 Championship, I think they'd probably just left him in the car. Like if Iwasa was walking away with it, I think they'd have no choice but to do that. But yeah.
And in terms of the race...
Well, they're really unlucky. So obviously Yuki Tsunoda finished in the points, handed a 5-second penalty.
Harsh.
I was going to say... I think it's weird because the FIA have not awarded similar incidents penalties, whereas this one obviously, I think the defence was fine.
Yeah, he doesn't force him off because Joker made the corner, but obviously I mean, the only reason Zhou went off to the escape road is because that's the FIA's instruction.
It wasn't overly aggressive, I don't think. I thought it's just... That's racing. It is going to be a little it's going to be a little aggressive at times. I know it's not supposed to be like a contact sport.
Then,
they're not barreling into each other. It's not rugby.
But... And then Ocon's making late moves down the straight to try and stop dryness. It was a weird decision to penalise him from the FIA, especially post-race.
It didn't make a lot of sense. And then, obviously, that dumped him out the points. Harsh on Yuki. Should have been another 2 points to his tally and pushing Alfa Romeo up the standings a little. Alfa Tauri up the standings a little. Instead, it did the opposite. It did help out Alfa Romeo. But Nick de Vries,
he held position from where he qualified. It's not horrific.
I don't think he did badly at all, considering Oscar Piastri just in front of him dropped from 10th.
Yeah.
Considering that Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez both started... Perez was in front of him. But Charles Leclerc started below him and he still didn't lose a spot. Good weekend for De Vries. Solid performance. He did, however, get outperformed by his teammate, so I would still have some major concerns.
Yeah, but in quality he outqualified him, so... Positive and negative.
Yeah, but he hasn't done it enough this season.
No, he hasn't. He definitely hasn't.
Up next, then, the big benefactors of that penalty for Yuki Tsunoda were Alfa Romeo, and namely Guan Yu Zhou. But Zhou Guan Yu. We'll start, though, with Valtteri Bottas.
Oh, I don't know what he spent this weekend doing.
He was 16th in qualifying, out in Q1. Not really anything to note. I mean, 16th in quali, managed to end up 19th in the race. They got their pants pulled down by Haas.
I don't know what he was doing in the race. He just drove really slowly.
I don't remember seeing him.
And obviously Zhou Guan Yu was flying, but he just drove. There was nothing wrong with the car. He just drove really slow.
Do you think this could be Bottas' last year?
Maybe he is starting to show
the problem for Alfa Romeo is he's got a contract until He's got a contract for next season. Zhou doesn't. Yeah. If they are to promote Porsche, are they seriously going to buy out Bottas' contract rather than just binning off Zhou? I personally don't see it.
He's struggling this year. He is an experienced racer.
I think the only way you can do it is if Bottas agrees to sort of become a reserve, but I can't see that happening. No. So, unless you can find him a seat, which means you wouldn't have to buy him out of his contract, I think that's the only option really. You're not going to be able to fork out. Alfa Romeo don't have 15 mil, or whatever his buyout would be, probably 10 million, but that's not going to happen, is it? No. So I think they're going to have to either bin off Zhou for Porsche or not promote Porsche at all. Yeah. Either way, they've got a tough decision to make. But Zhou Guan Yu doing everything in his power to try and keep that seat. Absolutely P9 brilliant. Today. A little unwarranted. Should have got P10 really. Tsunoda penalty was harsh, but he was in the position to take advantage of that.
Tsunoda allegedly pushed off.
Well, exactly. So he benefited.
Big 2 points for the
qualified
team.
P13. Yeah. Ended up gaining 4 spots in the end. I think that's a really solid weekend.
And saying he had Leclerc, chasing after him. He had a really good weekend, Zhou Guan Yu. He had really good pace. He just kept it up with it, and when other people were getting damaged and not driving very quickly, he managed to overtake and get some points.
The Spanish Grand Prix, there's been a lot of incidents over the last 2 seasons. Remember, obviously, last year we had a lot of squabbles with lap 1 between Hamilton and Magnussen. We had similar sort of things this year. So I think for a driver like Zhou that's managed to keep his nose clean, and to be fair, I don't remember many incidents for Zhou at all, especially not crashing with other drivers. Most of the times he's retired, it's been because that Alfa Romeo...
Like Silverstone, which definitely was not his fault, but he ended up going upside down.
No, I don't think he tried to do that, did he?
No, I don't think he did. I don't think that was his fault, that one.
No, but I do think he's a decent driver. I think he's proven a lot of people wrong by simply performing as he has. So shout out to Zhou, and a good weekend for Alfa Romeo as well. That's 2 crucial points, which take them level with Haas now. Speaking of which, Haas were sort of the square root of nowhere. Qualifying, excellent. Well, Magnussen P17, it's a problem. I think Magnussen's got to have one eye over his shoulder, because Hülkenberg wasn't a full-time driver for a few years, and now he's coming in performing it.
It feels like one weekend, one of them is fantastic and one's rubbish, and then they swap roles next weekend. Like in Miami, Magnussen doing a shift holding up Leclerc, Hülkenberg, I don't know where he was, pissing out the back. They can't get on together. It's like they have one good car and one bad car, and each week they swap the car around.
Yeah. Do you think that either of them are at risk of losing their seat? Because I know of one Ferrari Junior who's excelling in the Formula 2 series.
Bad as each other. They're both as good as each other, so I don't know who you kick out.
For me, for the pure fact that Nico Hülkenberg has not had a permanent seat in 3 seasons, he's doing very well.
He qualified P8. But in the race, again, square root of nowhere.
But I wanna have a go at Haas here, because he qualified P8. He was doing all right. He didn't drop too many positions, I don't think. I think he was still just on the fringe of the top 10. They pitted to block off Bottas. Like, if you're in and around 10th and that, just have a go at it.
Yeah.
But they pitted knowing they'd fall off, and he ended up P15. So I don't really know what they were doing there. It was a bizarre P18.
Blimey.
So somehow he also still lost a position from the race. So
Again, similar to Williams, not a great. Well, not similar to Williams because they got Hulkenberg, brilliant weekend. Haas overall, terrible weekend. Well, not again, brilliant. We're pretty fish.
But does the fact that he started P8 make it a worse weekend? Because he had so much promise and he threw it all away.
Poor weekend. But was it a one-lap wonder? Yes. Was he fortunate that Perez, Russell, Alonso and Leclerc all had stinkers in quali? Yes.
Yeah.
But again, if you're in that starting position, you should do better than finish 15th.
Yeah, fair enough. He definitely should. Definitely should. But they're not really doing a lot this season, are they, Haas? Up next, McLaren. God. This weekend promised so much, didn't it?
On Saturday, pure elation. On Sunday, depression.
We'll start with the Saturday. And I want to start with Oscar Piastri because he definitely could have got a higher position. Cocked up his final run in Q3. A little unfortunate. I think he could have got 6th.
Yeah.
6th, 7th sort of range. I think it was a little off drivers like Hamilton, but he definitely could have been ahead of Stroll, Ocon, Hulkenberg.
Getting into Q3 again, did really well.
Yeah, and then of course Lando Norris. I mean, what a lap. P3 for the young Brit. Considering that car has looked well off the pace at every round this season.
And did he take advantage of others' misfortune? Yes, but was he there to do it? Brilliantly.
But it's not like Q3 had no one in.
Yeah, no.
Alonso is there, who has done nothing, who's been excellent this season and then did nothing today. Hamilton's should have out-qualified him. Even drivers like Ocon, who have been better.
Alpine's faster. But as we learned on the Sunday, that McLaren was a one-lap wonder.
No, we didn't. We learnt that, Lando Norris isn't used to being up near the front. It was just an unfortunate accident. There was no fault, I don't think, for the incident. He just hit.
As Martin Brundle said on the Sky commentary, Sainz slowed ridiculously so to not go off track. Yeah. And it was a chain reaction and Norris just didn't react to it.
It's a racing incident, ultimately. Maybe if Norris is used to fighting at the sharp end, he jumps out of the way a little faster.
But even then, when he came into pits, he was absolutely nowhere in the race, and Oscar Piastri kind of dropped back.
But to be fair, when you have a pit on lap 1 and you still finish ahead of Magnussen and Bottas, Sargent, I think he did a decent job after that.
Albon, though, he had an absolute shocker. We didn't have a shocker, but Piastri, I mean, I look at Piastri. He was also
chopped out of the points, wasn't he?
No, what? I look at Piastri and go, he was P10. Russell, Perez, Leclerc overtake, that's P13.
But Norris dropping through the order as well. Hulkenberg dropping through the order.
Oh, he lost.
It sort of balances out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think you can make many excuses for McLaren this weekend because Piastri from P10, you could argue he drops behind Perez and Russell.
I just don't think the race pace is there.
But when drivers like Zhou and Tsunoda are outdoing him, and I can't think of many.
I don't think the race pace is there.
Yeah, fair enough. Should we get on to Alpine? Because I think this could have been a worldy weekend. If we look back at qualifying, 7th for Ocon, 4th for Gasly. Brilliant. So much promise there. And they both put in great laps, showed that Alpine are definitely that 5th quickest team right now. Gasly got a 6th place grid penalty for 2 separate incidents of impediment.
That's poor communication.
It's poor from Alpine. They've
got rid of the chicane as well because... The chicane was usually where people were impeded because they were queuing up. But
the incident with Leclerc at Monaco where he impeded Lando, I can understand that. You're in the tunnel, you just weren't thinking for a moment. Monaco's tight, there's nowhere for you to go. Where on earth was Gasly sitting?
I don't know. I really don't know.
At Spain, there is so much room. The track is a lot wider than Monaco. Just pull out the way, pull off the racing line. What part of the track are you in that's a problem?
Twice, it cost them. Because they went from starting P4 to P10.
Well, I was going to say I think this ruined the race. Because if Gasly was 4th, that would mean that that's one more car for Hamilton to overtake. And then I think if Norris and Gasly worked together, they could have kept Hamilton behind. I think that would have been a really exciting battle.
Norris doesn't hit Hamilton because Hamilton...
Yeah, exactly.
So Norris would probably say ahead of Gasly off the start because Gasly wasn't in a Mercedes.
Maybe have a much more exciting race.
Yeah.
But equally, he did get the penalty and it panned out as it did. Gasly, though, still getting points. P10 P10 in the end for him, though. Did, again, benefit from that Tsunoda penalty. Ocon P8. Not a lot more you could have asked for.
Yeah, it's like quiet qualifying, quiet race, but he delivered, so that's what matters.
Yeah, only dropped behind. Alonso's the only guy below him that caught up to him. So, given the fact that even drivers like, I have Perez as well, but boring. So, given the fact that, Leclerc was down the order, when Russell passed him, I can't remember.
Oh, no. That's not
Leclerc almost got into points. We'll get into that in a second. But
see that.
yeah, Gasly, fine weekend. Unfortunate with the penalties, but that's sort of on him and the team. And then Ocon, another good weekend. Couldn't really build on them.
Consistent.
I thought they'd build more on their Monaco performance. I really thought they'd push on and maybe get a 4-5 this weekend. That definitely could have been possible, I think. Maybe 6-7, being more realistic, but I don't know. They just sort of fell off in the race and didn't really have the pace to compete. And I feel like the drivers aren't the limiting factor of the team.
No.
The car is fine and the team's a little all over the place at times.
Yeah.
Speaking of teams, though, all over the place, Ferrari.
Oh my.
We're going to start with Charles Leclerc because it's the more interesting story, isn't it?
Right.
What a poor weekend.
My first point is this Leclerc luck or Leclerc curse is a load of rubbish. This isn't down to luck or whose prayers get answered. He struggled. He had a terrible, terrible weekend from start to finish, from Friday to Sunday. Awful.
I do feel that Charles Leclerc's overprotected in Formula 1. I feel like a lot of the time we just go, oh, he's got unlucky, or oh, there's car issues. But even when Mercedes had really bad car issues, they never qualified P19. Leclerc just had a really tough weekend. Just a really poor qualifying. And I can't really understand why. And even Ferrari have said they can't identify what the car issue was. So either it's a real problem and Ferrari can't notice it because they're Ferrari.
Or they're hiding it. Leclerc would have an absolute stinker.
Oh, that seems to be the more logical explanation here. Leclerc actually had a really poor qualifying.
Yeah, and I just don't understand how you're in a Ferrari. Even if you have... Because obviously, sometimes people, it's not their day. Sometimes they don't put in the right lap. But you're in a Ferrari, and even a bad lap in a Ferrari gets you out of Q1.
Gets you ahead of Albon at the very least.
You're behind a Williams.
Still had a Sargent, but, not that bad.
So that's a different... You demoted.
But yeah, I think Leclerc had a really poor qualifying.
And obviously, on the Sunday, they chose to start from the pit lane. And I know it's from the pit lane, but still, how do you not get points?
Yeah, I don't remember him starting from the pit lane.
They started on the hards.
Yeah,
which I thought
one place out the points. It's not horrendous from Charles Leclerc, but
the difference is the other drivers on this grid get to the points.
Well, yeah, I think that's the biggest difference right now between not only for Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, but between Ferrari and Red Bull. I don't
think it's just Max that gets the points. I think Hamilton could have, if he's in a quick cut, if he was in that Ferrari.
Yeah, well, even the Mercedes today.
Yeah, I think Russell could have. Perez probably wouldn't, because I don't know what happens to Perez. When he starts to blow the order, he just forgets how to drive.
That was at Monaco. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think any driver on the grid does last to first challenge at Monaco.
Well, I'll tell you who does. There's a few people who do.
Who?
Quality drivers.
I can't think of anyone in the world.
Someone's done it once, surely.
How? How on earth would anyone start from last? It's incredibly rare that anyone starts from last and finishes first. I don't know if it's ever happened.
F1 game, just put on 0% AI.
That's happened, yeah, well done.
Yeah. But no,
Arafa's lapped them all from starting a lap down, but that's not happened in real life.
Challenge. Do you know what? They should do that. If Max is on the championship, get him to do a lap down challenge.
What, the final race, he just stops at the start of the grid.
Pulls over to the side. I'm going to sit here and go get a drink. That would be interesting to see.
That would be decent. Looking at the other side of the garage then, Carlos Sainz, superb qualifying. I think he maximised the car.
Home Grand Prix, and they say your home crown gives you an extra 10th or 2, and they definitely did.
Yeah.
He was somewhat near.
Second, 5/10 off Max. I think that's about the max.
I don't think that was Sainz's fault. He was 5/10 off.
Yeah, and then in the race, he did nothing.
I don't know what they were doing on the strategy.
Well, from the start, he challenged Max, but ultimately didn't ever look like he was really going to make it.
Guessing by the radio messages, they didn't expect Mercedes to be as quick as they were.
Yeah. Even, remember the message of it was, I can't remember when it happened, but it was something. Science said something like, "Tell me how we catch Perez," and then Martin Brundle joked by employing Adrian Newey or something like that. It was good, very good. But it just shows they have no idea. Like, he's genuinely like, well, what can I do here? Because you've screwed me over.
But even before that, he was... But also, I don't know what it was, but he was very calm. He was like, this pace is good, guys. I'm going to keep going. And they go, well, no, mate. You need to pick up the pace because Mercedes are literally right behind you. I don't think he realised that Merck would be that quick. He seemed like, my pace is good. I'm going to keep to this pace. We'll take second. I'll get a podium at my home Grand Prix. And then 5 laps later, Hamilton was trying to overtake him. He seemed too relaxed for
Potentially a little bit of naivety there. I think Ferrari in general are a bit of a clown show.
And again, they're contenders
that comes as no surprise.
Bad
Mate, genuinely, I think we're going to list them as L every week because they consistently drop a stinker.
I think there's one worse.
I don't know though. Is there anything worse than the fourth best car finishing qualifying 19th?
Yeah, no, there isn't. That is horrific. Terrible weekend.
Yeah.
Terrible weekend.
Not so much better weekends. Up next is Aston Martin, who have now been jumped.
What happened?
They're not converting on their pace consistently enough this season. Alonso a poor lap, P9. I think Stroll did well though, P6, decent qualifying position.
Then, off the start, Lancelot Stroll.
I was at 98% sure Stroll was getting a podium from the first few corners.
He flew. He saw Norris and Hamilton crash. He then got past both of them. He was P3 at turn 5.
Well, he was fighting Hamilton for P3. I don't think he got it.
He did.
Did he?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And then he lost it a couple laps later. But he was still there, and that's what counts.
I don't think there's much more Aston could have done this weekend. Evidently, Merck have brought upgrades, haven't they? And they've got a better package now.
And obviously Perez cut through.
Maybe if Alonso, Red Bulls, they're not even fightable.
If Alonso had qualified higher, maybe he would have finished in that 5th slot. Yeah,
you would imagine that Alonso could fight Sainz, but I think Stroll did the best he could with the car.
Basically,
I think a 6-7 for Aston is really good. If Alonso puts
a good lap in, he probably, for me, he beats Lando's lap.
Yeah, I
think P3, maybe P4.
Yeah, he definitely could have been up there, and then maybe you look at a podium because I think he could have fought Lewis harder than other drivers did. But yeah, Alonso, tough weekend. Aston Martin though, considering that I would say they're the 4th fastest package now.
Yeah,
they should be aiming for 7-8 every race.
Alonso did nearly get assaulted by Ocon on the straight, but he dodged that well because he is just the reaction to that man.
Yeah, it's finishing a 6-7 though, another solid 14 points haul. They would have wanted more. I think now fighting Mercedes seems unrealistic. Mercedes have brought upgrades. Aston seem to have cooled down on developments. Maybe if they bring something at the mid-season break, maybe then we look at them challenging for the second half of the season. But the other thing, I think we could be in for a mega second half of the season.
Yeah.
Think back to 2020. Once Lewis had already wrapped it up, it was just mint after that.
Max
because
won
everyone was going for
70th anniversary Grand Prix.
British Grand Prix. That was I think the championship was still contentious by that point.
Right.
But it was, there was races after that were won by different drivers.
Yeah.
Stuff like, but wait, did we have, no, 2020 is wrong year for Lando Sochi, isn't it? 2021 was Lando Sochi, but...
Well, Lando didn't win it, did he?
No, that's a Sochi moment, not Sochi win, but...
Third worst day of my life.
We're not ranking those today, but...
No, we're not.
Somehow back to this weekend, Aston Martin, not horrendous. Mercedes.
I think they'll take this double podium. The car looks sweet all weekend.
Yeah, George Russell. I mean, we often criticise him on this show, and we're going to criticise him first. Probably qualifying is bad.
This was the one thing that went horribly wrong for Mercedes. What happened? How do you crash into each other in quali?
But also, why were they not penalised? Because I think if they're not teammates, they lobby more against each other, and then one of them's penalised for their actions.
It was just a really weird scenario. How does that scenario happen?
Well, Russell slowed in front of Lewis for some reason, I think, and then Lewis took to the grass, and it was really messy.
Russell lifted, so Lewis went, why is he lifted? I'm going to go around him. And then Russell kind of just floored it again once he saw Lewis going past him. Lewis is fanning around on the grass. They make contact. One of them takes damage. Mental how that even occurs.
Well, that completely cocks Russell.
He deserves to be an idiot.
They're both at fault there. And Hamilton though, P5. Again, you're in the second quickest car. Questions have to be asked as to why you're not P2, I think. Because it's not like Mercedes have got a bad package anymore. And he was behind Pierre Gasly in the 5th quickest car. He was behind Lando Norris in what you could argue is the 7th or 8th quickest car.
It's not bad.
It is very bad.
I'd say 6th. It's better than the Alfa Romeo.
Okay. And the AlphaTauri maybe. Who knows? Hard to say. And then obviously Ferrari, they're all over the place at the moment. So I definitely think Lewis should have been P2. Overall, disappointing qualifying.
Race.
Perfect.
Brilliant. Russell drove superbly, to be fair to him. I'm his harshest critic.
Yeah.
I don't really like the bloke, but he drove really well. And Hamilton did what he had to do. Got into second. Yeah. And to us, neither of them could have done much more because there was a certain Dutchman that was off in the horizon.
If you don't count him,
yeah,
then it's 1-2 for Mercedes.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, Hamilton was used to dominating back in the day. Now he can't even get close to Max Verstappen. P2, P3 for Mercedes. Red Bull, though, what a weekend for one driver. Nah, weekend for the other. We'll start with Checo Perez. Boring.
This needs to stop happening. This needs to stop happening.
Another qualifying
This is the kind of things we saw from Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly that got them dropped.
The problem is now, for Red Bull, is that Checo is... The two problems they have is that they want a driver who is dependable but won't fight Max. This season, he's been unreliable and has fought Max at every opportunity.
Perez is a very quick driver, but he will not cut it at the best team on the grid if he keeps failing in qualifying.
Well, he's can't get his qualifying in, right? But when he can, he's too much of an aggressor against Max to be a perfect number 2.
He's either on pole or last, and that can't happen. That's not good enough.
No, certainly not. I think this, again, another quality session that leaves a lot to be desired. P11. You really shouldn't be anywhere
driving off in
behind
gravel,
a Haas.
Putting in a wall in Monaco, and if you are ever behind a Haas on a one-lap pace...
In a Red Bull.
That's horrific. Oh yeah, if you're in a go-kart and that.
If you're running.
I still think I could outrun that Haas in a straight line. Give me a rear wing.
Yeah.
But I just... Yeah, Perez, he's got to stop this. He's got a 2-week break now to get his head sorted for Canada, reset, cut the mistakes out, deliver in 2 weeks.
Yeah, fair enough. He definitely has to up the performances. Someone who can't pop. Well, actually, Perez then P4. He should have been on the podium, shouldn't he? He started a place behind George Russell. He a place ahead of George Russell and ended up 3 seconds behind him at the end. He should have been on the podium.
And again, he was, I think it was 13 laps, 9 seconds behind Russell, and they're both on the softs, but he's in a Red Bull. He should catch that easily, and the fact he only gained 6 seconds... I think the fact he gained 6 seconds proved that he could have gained another 3. He just wasn't quick. He has to deliver more lap time. He might be able to whisper to the tyres, but sometimes he needs to ruin them and race them.
But the problem is as well, when Max is putting in the performances he is, whatever you do is going to look horrendous. Because he gained 7 spots, and in a normal team, in a normal season, you go, fair enough, not a bad innings. But in that Red Bull, compared to your teammate, to be 35 seconds off him come the end of the race...
She took away his teammate.
Yeah. Well, a clean sweep, a grand slam... What other words do you want to use to describe it? He led every single lap of the race. We're, of course, talking about Max Verstappen. Fastest in every session.
I didn't see him.
On pole, race
winner. He was
winner.
so far down the road. I think Sky cut him up 4 times, and that was when his hards weren't really... And I think he struggled. He was skating around, struggling with, his front left.
He ran wide. He almost got a penalty for track limits.
He got black and white flagged. Yeah. And despite that, he finished 25 seconds clear of anyone. He lapped up to 14th.
13th. He even got.
Mental.
Is there any stop again?
No. He left the championship wrapped up halfway through at this rate.
Well, yeah. So his current gap now is 53 points to Checo Perez. Of course, we are only at round 8 of the season, and one of those rounds was cancelled, of course, Imola. So technically round 7. And we now head to Canada, Austria, Britain, Hungary, Belgium, Netherlands. This, by the way, last season, Max Verstappen struggled in the early rounds. It was the European leg that won in the championship. He's dominated the early rounds. We are now headed to the European leg.
The 2 big things were Leclerc's mistake in France and Max winning his home Grand Prix. They were the 2 moments where you looked at it and went...
And Red Bull finding...
Yeah, he's on...
a lot of pace.
Yeah, but Adrian Newey just makes things up as he goes along. He must.
I think he makes up as he goes along. That's usually described someone who's incompetent. I think Adrian is ridiculously good at his job.
Oh no, he is obviously the world's best.
Yeah.
But he must be a nice people that has like chalkboards and whiteboards and pieces of paper around his room. So when he wakes up at 2 a.m. with a fantastic idea for a car, he can write it down immediately.
Little shower thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel ridiculous. Like Adrian is the kind of guy, a little bit of marijuana. Just little... So that's when he comes up with his best ideas. That's how he develops the RV19. He was high. And just saw it in his mind.
You know, this video's going to be titled Adrian Do It Exposed.
Yeah, there we go. We know Adrian's secrets. But, yeah, Max is too good. And Red Bull... The thing is having Checo down the order too much of an issue? Because if Max is going to single-handedly win the Constructors anyway...
And Checo delivers enough points for him to bring the Constructors home...
They don't even need him. Max's 170 puts him first in Constructors if Red Bull aren't there. They could just run Max Verstappen and he's outdone everyone else.
Pressure that doing IndyCar, just give him another driver. Give him to someone else. Run team and run 3. Give Williams 3 drivers.
And Verstappen, I mean, this is strange, but Verstappen has outperformed the entire Ferrari, Alpine, McLaren, Haas, Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, Williams F1 team combined. If you took those 7 teams and totaled up the points...
He's better than all of them.
As long as the math in my head isn't wrong, he's outperformed them.
That's...
mental.
12 drivers?
No, that is more than that.
14 drivers.
14 drivers. He's done well this season, to be fair. He's done quite well.
Yeah. When do you go back for the championship? What race?
I don't know. Probably around 10.
Circuit de Grand Prix?
No. There is no way he wins it with 8 rounds to go. He'd have to have... Well, it's 26 times 8. 208 points.
Yeah.
He's only got 6 rounds to accumulate another... So if his gap now is 70, he needs 138. Oh no, his gap's 53, sorry.
Alright,
so he'd need 150-ish points. But...
Will another driver, apart from Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen, win a race this season?
Hope so. I really hope so.
Maybe it could be Fernando Alonso.
Doesn't seem like it, though, because Aston's just dropped off in pace now.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably a consequence of that
shout
song.
out to the Pit Stop Boys. Quality song.
It's the only thing I've heard this weekend, so thanks,
Brilliant.
guys.
Absolute tune.
I think Gary's single-handedly doing all the numbers on Spotify.
Non-stop.
Yeah.
Good weekend.
This weekend. I think the Barcelona Grand Prix provided us quite an interesting spectacle. A lot of talking points, and hopefully we see the continued action in Canada. Of course, F2 and F3 did happen this weekend. We are not going to talk about them now, but we are thinking we'll do videos for them on Friday and Monday, our next 2 recording or posting slots. So if you do want to see that, make sure to get involved in the comments below and tell us of that. And speaking of the comments, get involved with everything you think from this race and our thoughts on it and the championship as a whole. Is anyone other than Red Bull going to win a race? But that's all from us today. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.